Okay, day 7. Another day, another drawing. Um, but I wanted to talk about something actually that I think is kind of fits the theme of this whole series, and is based on like a recent conversation I had with someone about the 10,000 hour rule. And if you're not familiar with the 10,000 hour rule, it was an idea that was popularized by the author Malcolm Gladwell in his book Outliers, which was published in 2008. And it's this idea that was based on some research by Anders Ericsson, I believe is his name. I have some of the sources right here in front of me. Just want to make sure I get it correct. But the idea is that Anders Ericsson was studying musicians at a music academy and found that the most successful students had, by the time they entered the academy, already put in 10,000 hours of practice. And Gladwell kind of generalized this rule and kind of found some examples, some really interesting examples with Bill Gates, with the Beatles, um, and basically making the argument that anybody who puts in 10,000 hours of work into something is likely going to be an expert of like the highest caliber in that area. And when you think about how many hours 10,000 hours is, it's actually a lot. It's crazy. So like the average, let's say you're doing 40 hours a week, which would be like a typical work week for somebody, that only amounts to about 2,000 hours a year. So that would be 5 years of consistent working 40 hours per week, 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. And I think, you know, in an art context, to get in that many hours probably takes even longer because it's really rare that someone is sitting down that's not already a professional artist or that's already in the art world to sit down and do that amount of time. And I was trying to kind of think about estimate my own amount of hours that I've probably put into art. And I mean, given that I've been drawing now for so I'm 30 years old now, turning 31, and I started, art when I was 18, but then I took some time off and went back into it. But probably in my life, it's only been maybe 2,000, 3,000 hours that I've put into artwork. And the interesting thing is there was actually some like controversy, a little bit of controversy after this 10,000 hour rule came out within people that, within circles that kind of study these things and think about mastery and think about practice. And they make the point that the 10,000 hour rule focuses too much on the amount of time and not enough on what is, quote unquote, specifically called in these circles, deliberate practice, which is like the quality of the practice. And I think that's something really interesting that I've been trying to, like suss out more in this series and suss out more for myself, which is like, it isn't necessarily bad. Like it's better to draw than not draw. Like it's better to do a session of drawing than not drawing. But the best session to do is something that is, very deliberate, very intentional, very practiced. And that's really what I've been trying to emphasize in each of these daily drawings, and what I'm really trying to emphasize in my own art development right now. And so yeah, it's kind of interesting. And I was also curious, so I looked up like the Angel Academy of Art, which is I believe it's in Italy in Florence, but it's one of the like top academic art institutes in kind of the old Renaissance tradition. And everybody who goes through there, ends up being an amazing artist. And, probably the most famous of which is Cesar Santos, who, if you don't know, is arguably like one of the best living masters today. And I was looking at they have like a 3-year program that they go through. And it's so deliberate, like the way that they go through the course, where you're literally starting from drawings. So you're starting from copying drawings. Then you move on to, so you're actually copying, so it's the bark drawing, which I don't really want to get into now, but we can get into that later. But it's basically drawings of statues. So you're copying drawings of statues. Then you draw statues. And you do this for almost like a year before you even get into anything that could be like off of like remotely live person or live model. And then finally you start to get into live model work. And by the time you do that, you've already put in probably, at least a year of this really intense work. And the Angel Academy is like pretty known for being intense. So you've probably put in 2,000-3,000 hours by the time you even get to live model drawing. And I think that's really interesting kind of premise to think about. And like I like that progression too of starting from something simple and kind of like working itself up. And so I've been trying to like think about like, okay, what's the value in this in my practice? Because I'm don't have 3 years to go to the Angel Academy right now. So like, how can I kind of implement this? And I think like right now I'm kind of very freeform on what I'm practicing. I'm just like going one drawing to the next. Okay, what am I feeling like working on today? So we've worked on process, we've worked on gesture, we worked on some block ins so far. Today I was thinking about doing line quality. But I think what I want to do is actually make something that's like a bit more deliberate for myself in terms of like how I'm thinking about this whole period, these next 100 days. So I'm thinking something like, okay, maybe the next 30 days will be focused on something kind of basic. Then the next 30 days will be slightly more advanced, and then like the last 30 days will be something else. Um, so I might design something like that for myself. Maybe not super strict, but something that I can kind of go through a little bit, and maybe it'll be kind of interesting for anyone watching to think about how they might want to structure their practice. So with all that being said, today I won't be practicing line quality, even though I do need to. I'll be thinking about it a little bit, and I think I'm actually just going to do another gestural block in. But I have like kind of like a more subtle reference picked out. So there's some gesture in here and some process, and so I'm kind of like at least staying on theme of what I've been working on so far before I branch off into something new. So yeah, anyway, that's like kind of about practice, about deliberate practice, and we'll continue to develop these ideas throughout the series. But I guess let's get into the drawing. All right, so since I talked a lot before the drawing, I'll keep this one like a bit short. But actually, I'm super happy with the drawing today. I only drew for like, let's say 45 minutes or an hour, like the normal time period, and I'm gonna stop here. And I just finished like the 2D construction and 3D construction of the drawing, but I actually like had a really nice time with it, and I think I tapped into some nice things with like gesture. Like I feel like capture the gesture of the pose pretty well. I'll like look back at it later. Sometimes it's better to walk away for an hour and then come back and see like, okay, oh, okay, I actually missed here or missed there. Like when you're staring at it for a super long period of time, it's harder to see some of the mistakes. Um, but also, actually, funny enough, I said I wasn't going to really work on line quality, but I'll pay attention to it. And just the way I was drawing today, like super slow, I was like, you know what, I'm going to kind of care about line quality a little bit and just like see how this goes. It was more like in the back of my mind, like a secondary piece of the practice, and I'm super happy with the line quality of this drawing, actually. Of course, it can always be improved, but like as far as, compared to some of the other ones, there's not none of those like really scratchy, anxious lines. They're a bit thick. Like I could definitely vary the line quality a bit more, and this is going to be a long process of studying that and understanding that. But I do kind of like a little bit some of the effects that came out here, and I think I captured the pose pretty well, the gesture of the pose, which is the most important thing. So that's all for now. We'll talk again tomorrow, and probably continue the same thing. Bye bye.